Ladies and gentlemen, finally, the video you have all been waiting for. The fourth and final installment of my top 20 bands of all time. This is the top 5, people. I know you've all been discussing and you've all been at the water cooler at work like, I wonder what they're going to be. And then some of you are like, we already know what they're going to be. We definitely know what the number 1 is going to be. But we'll get there. We'll get there. We have 5 to go through. And for me, they are the 5 most important bands in my life. And so I'm very happy to be here to talk about it with you guys. If you missed 20 all the way down to 6, those videos are out there. I might put links down in the description to all the other, I don't know why I did this, like I'm dog paddling. Anyway, I might put some links down there. If I can remember, I don't know. I'm a very busy man, ladies and gentlemen. So let's get going with my top 5 favorite bands of all time.
Band inclusion and placement subject to change without notice. The views and opinions of present Old Head do not necessarily reflect those of future Old Head. Consult your physician to see if ranking bands is right for you. Prices and participation may vary. Under 18, get your parents' permission.
Kiss. So this is one that was not so high in my list of bands previously, but I may have touched on this in an earlier video, but I've really leaned in, over the past several years, leaned into the feeling that music gives me and how much I actually just thoroughly enjoy it. On top of like always obsessing over all the little details of everything, and it's become very clear to me that it is more important for music to feel good to me than anything else. And this is a band that's been with me since I was a kid, since I first got Double Platinum and Crazy Nights back in the day. And I love every one of their albums. Their last few were just kind of like, they're fine. But you know, it's one of those things where it's a Kiss album, and so I do enjoy them, but I picked out some of the ones that I really enjoy, including Music for the Elder. And obviously I love the non-makeup era of Kiss as well. But the one thing that always rings true, no matter if I'm listening to their first album or, you know, their last album, was it Sonic Boom, the last one that came? No, it was Monster was the last one that came out. I always feel good, always have a good time. There's several bands on my list that I talk about that, how I throw them on and I instantly feel good. And not only that, there's a whole lot of fucking killer songs. The thing that nobody talks about with Kiss, especially a lot of early Kiss, 80s Kiss as well, there's some fucking great riffs in there as well, and amazing vocals. Paul Stanley's an amazing vocalist. Gene Simmons is also a vocalist. But yeah, so all of the things that they've done in their career, it just makes it one of the most fascinating careers to me, just because they did everything from, you know, doing the live double albums, doing a movie that, you know, went however it went, doing 4 solo albums, taking off their makeup, changing members, like literally like all of these things. And this band has survived for 50 years or whatever, a long fucking time. And so much of what they have done still gives me the same feelings and kind of makes me feel like an adolescent again listening to it. It's always music that I have to crank up no matter what. And I love everything that Kiss has done. And yeah, so of course they have to go here in the top 5. But apparently there are 4 bands that I love more than this. So sorry, Kiss, you're number 5. Faith No More. This is another band that was much higher up on my list before, but made it into the top 5, top 4 this time because they mean a lot to me. And the more that I thought about it and the more that I went over the stuff that they had done from the beginning all the way to their most recent album, so much of the music is just so meaningful to me. I think probably because when I first heard The Real Thing back in 89, it felt like music that was kind of meant for somebody like me, because I didn't really fit in anywhere, and I was always looking for music that was heavy and aggressive in some way, but I've always been attracted to the bands that did a little something different with it, and Faith No More was one of the first bands that just really grabbed me, that I'm like, this feels different and this feels like it's for me. I mean, my older brother doesn't know this band, and a lot of people at school have no idea who this band is. I found them. They're mine. They were one of the first they're mine kind of bands, and I've grown with them, and I've gone back to really love the Chuck Mosley era of the band. Introduce Yourself is easily one of my favorite Faith No More albums now, but of course the GOAT is always going to be Angel Dust. But everything about their discography just gives me that feeling of belonging somewhere, even though it's a place where I'm like, does anybody really belong here? Is it, but it's, I don't know, it's hard to explain, but it is one of those things where I love the music. I love Mike Patton's vocals and his songwriting. I'm a Mike Patton fan overall, but this combination of guys, I love the interesting, funky, alternative noise, whatever they end up fucking doing. I feel like they nail it at every turn. And so, yeah, Faith No More. I don't know what else to say. Amazing band, very special band to me. On to the top 3. Anthrax. All right, so those of you who have followed my shit for a while, my top 3 are going to be no surprise to you. So you probably already know who my top 3 bands are. I think in the past, Anthrax may have slid in at number 2, but, they still make it to the top 3. And to me, they're a very special band. They were the very first thrash metal band I ever heard when I heard State of Euphoria back in, I think it was the early 1990 was when I heard that album for the first time. And I became a huge fan, and I followed them ever since and went back and became a fan of their entire discography. But I think a big thing about why they are so important to me has to do with the fact that they have always sort of rolled with whatever ideas they had and didn't really think about how anyone was going to perceive them. Because, clearly they start off, real sort of classic speed metal kind of stuff. And then, not too many years later, they put out a fucking hip hop song followed by one of the most classic thrash albums ever made, followed by one that people don't like, but I absolutely loved, followed by another one of my favorite. It goes on and on and on. And then all of a sudden, Attack of the Killer Bees, they do their thing with Public Enemy, which is still one of the greatest songs ever to me. And then they start off again with a new vocalist, John Bush, and they put out another one of my favorite Anthrax albums of all time. Put out several with him. I'm a fan of the John Bush era as well. I do prefer Joey Belladonna. I've said this on many videos. I don't want Joey to sing John's songs, and I don't want John to sing Joey's songs. I think neither one of those sound that good. But their comeback with Joey for their last 2 albums, especially For All Kings, I just think that they're still just full of great songwriting and ideas. Maybe they're not quite as adventurous as they were back in the day, but who is really when you get to be in your 50s? But their output is one of the most unique and interesting when it comes to thrash metal. And that's why it always blows my mind when people argue they don't need to be in the big 4. I'm just like, what the fuck are you talking about? Are you high? But anyway, I love this band so much, got me into thrash metal, stayed a band that I was really engaged with throughout pretty much everything they did, and still looking forward very much to the new album that they're working on right now. And, even if I just kind of like it, I think they're pretty solidified in my top 5. So there you go. Anthrax. Nirvana. All right, so if you want to talk about a band that had an impact on me, there is none bigger than Nirvana. I am one of those people that was of a certain age when Nevermind came out. I was a young teenager, and for lack of a better way to put it, because everybody says it this way, the music spoke to me. It felt like it was made for me and people like me. And not only that, it inspired me to start playing guitar and start writing songs and start my own band. So it was my Beatles on Ed Sullivan, as it was many other people's as well. And honestly, the music has aged remarkably well for me and for a lot of people, because younger people are still getting into Nirvana, and there is no discussion about, well, when did this come out? Doesn't matter. The music speaks for itself. A very unfortunately short-lived band, or maybe fortunately, who knows? All I know is I still hear anything from any of these records that you see behind me, or anything that Kurt Cobain ever did, and it still inspires me and makes me want to go pick up a guitar and write a song. And like I said, I'm not the only person. This is a special band to a lot of people. So if you are one of those people out there that doesn't get it and thinks Nirvana is overrated, they're not. You are just not one of us. Metallica. Good night, everybody. Okay, maybe I should say more. Have you not heard enough Metallica talk over the past few months or whatever? But I'll do some more, because they're my favorite band of all time. Have been my favorite band of all time since 1991, when the Black Album came out. I was one of those, once again, young teenagers that got into Metallica. And no, I wasn't old enough to be there back in the day. But very soon, I realized that they had all this fucking great music, and they have continued to put out amazing music, in my opinion, including Load and Saint Anger. Two very underrated albums that they've done. And just like a lot of the bands that I love, you'll hear me say this a lot, I love the fact that they were not afraid to try whatever the fuck it is they wanted to do. Whether it was an album like Saint Anger, an album like Lulu, if they want to do a fucking movie, if they decide that they want to cut their hair and make some shit that sounds kind of alternative-ish, it doesn't matter. Every single turn, to me, it's absolute quality and really memorable songs. And at this point, a lot of those songs have grown so much for me over the years that some of the ones that I may have not been that into back in the day, these days have found a whole new life with me. And it is a discography to me that keeps on giving. As soon as there's one album that maybe I'm a little tired of hearing stuff off of, another one pops up that I'm just like, why have I not been giving this enough attention? And then there's an album like Death Magnetic, which when I did go through that slump that a lot of Metallica fans did, where they're like, all right, I'm not really sure where they're going, and I don't feel as excited as I used to feel. And Death Magnetic brought me right back. Absolutely adore that album. And honestly, Hardwired's a great album. And if you didn't watch the very long Crankton Ranked review of 72 Seasons, I also really like that album. And that one probably could grow over time to be one that I hold up with all of these that I decided to put behind me. But there's no doubt about it that they are a band that set the bar for how great a band could be. And to me, they keep on surprising me with what they're able to do. And even this late in the game, how they're able to make music that I still am just as excited about as I was back in 1991. And so, yes, to nobody's surprise at all, if you've lasted this long, thank you very much. But my number one band is, of course, Metallica. So that's it. That wraps up my top 20 bands of all time. If you've been playing at home, put your top 5 down to your top 1 in the comments below, or tell me what you thought of mine. Sure, that's fine. And like I said, if you missed the other 3 parts, I'll put a link in the description and just go check those out. But yeah, that's really all there is to it. It feels kind of anticlimactic because there was no big surprise in this episode, I don't think. But yeah, I appreciate you guys being here and continuously watching the shit that I put out, because, you know, I think to some people it's complete nonsense and it's just some dude babbling about shit that doesn't even fucking matter. Well, it matters to me a lot, and that's why I'm still here, and so I appreciate you being here as well. Thank you for watching, and I will see you all again very soon.